Welcome back to Sin City Prepping. Today, we're going to go over some suggestions from you guys on some past videos. Let me just say, I love your guys' suggestions and ideas in the comments section. And I want to share with everybody some of the ideas that you've had that I've been able to incorporate and some that I'm looking to adopt in the future. Let's go check them out. All right, our first suggestions come in relation to the 10-minute bug out challenge video. And if you haven't seen it and I can figure out how to link it up here, I'll throw it up. We can check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But our first suggestion comes from Jake Michael 6891. And he says, why don't you have a firearm on you? That way you can protect the stuff that you're throwing in your truck. And I couldn't agree more. I'm a firm believer in being prepared, and that's why my everyday carry is a P365 SIG. I'm a firm believer that if you can't protect what you've prepped, then you're prepping for somebody else. And the next suggestion comes from Carlos Gardia, as well as my wife. And they both say, why didn't you have a checklist? That way you're not forgetting stuff. I couldn't agree more. That's why I took a few minutes, made a checklist. And other than fighting with the printer for a little bit, it's now hanging right by a big cache of my bug out items. Our next suggestion is on our bean recipe video with dry pinto beans. And our suggestion is from the Silver 5728. And their family is a bunch of carnivores, and they said they'd have to add a bunch of meat to the beans for their family to eat it. I thought that's a good idea. So I tried a couple different ways of adding meat to these beans. I don't know if it's a chili now, but it's delicious. So first I tried canned chicken breast because I have a ton of them. And I wanted to find a way to add them to a recipe. I ended up having to add a little bit more salt just to give it some flavor. If you have a rotisserie chicken, that's the ticket. All right, let's check out the next one. Our next suggestion is on the fire kit video, and it comes from Chris King 9919. And his suggestion is to cover the cotton balls that we carry with Vaseline. Let's show you how it works.
Well, let's make some of these up. So one thing I noticed is the first ones I did, I was kind of dipping them in here, and it was leaving a lot of cotton inside the Vaseline. So if you're going to use this for anything else, I would suggest kind of pulling it out and putting a bunch of it on a plate or something else on the side. Because then you can take your ball and cover it with the Vaseline on the side. It's messy business, so I suggest having some gloves. You can see how the cotton will pull apart. So just gotta keep packing it on there. Good.
So the cotton balls that I keep in my bag right now, I use as a fire starter. And right now they're just dry cotton balls in there that were good for striking and with a ferro rod or a match, anything for a fire starter. Now I'm curious if I can light these with the ferro rod too, or if I need to do it more with a match. These are goopy. going to be more the match. I imagine this is going to burn a lot longer than it was just as a cotton ball. Nice because all this stuff is wet. Getting it to burn. So I think it's a great idea. I'm going to put a few of these in each of my bags. While we were updating the fire kits, I had a bunch of Fresnel lenses that hadn't been added yet. So each kit got one of those as well. All right, the last video we're going to cover is what's in your go bag. Now this video by far had the most suggestions and comments than any of the others, which is awesome. So our first suggestion comes from Who's Your Daddy? You guys' names are fantastic. So his says, where's your rain gear? And I gotta say, I overlooked it. We got so little rain the last few years that like I'm not gonna waste any room with a poncho or anything with rain gear. But looking at it or thinking back, you're like, if I'm gonna need it, it's gonna be raining that day, and all my gear is gonna be wet. So I had a bunch of these little emergency ponchos. They're cheap, but they're disposable and they tear real easy. So I went ahead, I waited till I saw some of the frog togs on sale. I got a bunch of them. So each of us have a nice poncho. It'll fit up and over your backpack if you need it. And so that's what we went with in our go bags. Our next suggestion comes from Proud Canadian 9816. And he had a lot of suggestions, but one of the things he suggested was to throw a contractor's grade 55-gallon bag in your go bags. So, which was easy. We had a ton of these in the garage. So I threw one of these in each bag, and some of his ideas were actually pretty good. You can stuff it full of clothes, leaves, stuff like that, and it'd be a good insulator, as well as you could make an emergency poncho if you needed to. You could use it just to pick up trash or our carrying device. So we just made sure to use the extra thick contractor one so they wouldn't tear as easy. Good suggestion. Another suggestion came from the other Alan, 5511. He says I should keep a candle in my go bag. Now the problem I have a ton of candles. So I have these UCO 9-hour candles, and then I have the lanterns too, but these are glass. And I'm pretty rough on my my go bags. I toss them around all the time. So I'm trying to figure out a way that I can pack a lantern or some way without breaking it. So I think I might just have to throw a candle in there. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Thanks for the idea, Alan. All right, before we bring up the last two suggestions, I want to talk just a little bit about the go bag. Everybody's idea of bugging out, I think, is a little bit different. For us, we're definitely planning on taking a vehicle. We do not want to be out walking if we can help it. That's going to be our last resort. So I realize our bags are on the heavier side. They're not over 25% of our body weight, but there's a lot of stuff in there that we'd like to have. If we end up, unfortunately, on our feet and we end up walking, then yeah, we'd reconsider some of the stuff that we carry, and a lot of it would be left. So, but our number one plan is to be in a vehicle. Our first bug out location is at about a mile away, which we could easily walk with everything in our bags. After that, it progressively gets further, and then out of state is our last ditch effort to get out. So, with that in mind, a couple of our suggestions that came through. One by Robert Johnson 668 says, my pack's way too heavy. There's no way I could be walking around in the desert with it, and I should get rid of all the extra clothing I have, the solar, a lot of stuff. So here's the idea. I would much rather have it packed and ready and able to discard it if I needed to than not have it in there at all. Our next one is from Ramen Ed, or Ramenedc, or Ramen EDC. And he has a ton of suggestions. One, he says, get rid of my hatchet and go for a silky saw instead. The silky saw is a great tool. My kid Jonathan carries one. So the silky saw weighs 1.05 pounds. My hatchet weighs 1 pound and 5 ounces. So with my hatchet, I can cut, I can strike, I can use it as a weapon, I can build a shelter with it. I think I'm keeping the hatchet. It's not that much heavier than the silky, and I can do quite a bit more with it. I think it would pair great with a silky. So, like I said, my son uses one, someone else uses one. They work good together. It's not quite as heavy as everyone thinks, especially with the nylon handle. He did come up with a great idea, which I'm going to try out. He said instead of the MREs, use the freeze-dried food like the REI packets. Actually have some peak refuel on the way, and I'm going to do some weight analysis with those. I think it's going to be a great idea, and so I'm excited about that. So I appreciate that suggestion. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I absolutely love all the comments and suggestions. I read each one. So I hope you guys have a great week. Stay safe and keep prepping. Are you getting ready for... What? Hi. Coming in? Coming in? You too? You guys got to be in every video, don't you? I know. Everyone.